Hey folks, welcome. Welcome after what I hope was a great Thanksgiving break for you. And welcome to the last live stream of this semester. Can you believe it? We've got Faith, Brandley. Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's going to be a really short one today. It's going to be really short because we're at the end of the semester, just a couple of things to go over. So we will have our last lecture today. And then next week, we are going to meet over Zoom and do a final review so that you're all set for the final and so forth. But today is just going to be a fun, short little one to kind of wrap things up. So with that, let me go ahead and set us up. Let's come on over here. That way. It's that way. I want to tell you a story about these two pictures, okay? So, let me show you what we got here. This one right here, okay? You'll notice, by the way, real quick, that both of these graphs look really similar, okay? Well, there's a reason they look similar. This is a fingerprint of a bubble, of an economic bubble. The reading this week talked about tulips in Holland and so forth. I don't really like that reading for a few reasons, but one is that it makes it sound like bubbles are an ancient thing. No. These bad boys are happening all the time. So, let me tell you about this first bubble right here. This is a chart of the Intel stock price. So Intel inside, and Intel Corporation, they make the CPUs for computers, all that sort of good stuff. Okay. This is the stock price. And you notice it went way up, and then it crashed and came way down. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, the reason Lon put that red line there is that's the date that it hit its highest and then came back down. It is the date that it hit its highest, but that's not why I put the red line there. The reason I put the red line is that was the day I was hired. The day I was hired was when the stock price was at its highest, and it was all downhill from there. But now here's the thing. You don't know that it's all downhill from there, right? So when I was hired on with Intel, all I knew was the past history, right? We didn't know that it was in a bubble and everything. And Intel pays its employees, sure, they pay money, okay, salary and so forth, but it also pays in stock options. That's where the real money is. And so when I was recruited, I was given a stock package and so forth. And I calculated that if over the next 25 years, the company did as it did the previous 25 years, that I would be able to retire a multimillionaire by the age 55. And this wasn't voodoo mathematics or anything. It was just, hey, if you look at the history of the stock price and you look at the price of my my options and so forth, I'll be able to sell them for millions of dollars and at 55. Well, for those of you playing at home, I just turned 58 and I'm not retiring a multimillionaire. Well, that's because of the dot-com boom, right, bust, right? All of you grew up in the world of dot-com, right, of the internet and so forth. You don't know a time that there was no internet. all of this is when it was just happening and we didn't know where it was going to go. And so there was this huge bubble that went all around and finally it popped and it came crashing down. Okay. All right. So then what about this other, here it is, this other chart. All right. Well, this one has two red lines in it. This is the housing market bust, okay? This happened in what was it, 2009, okay? Your parents remember this. Here in Utah, we didn't get hit quite so hard. Yes, we did get hit with the housing, collapse. But Utah tends to be a pretty steady state, right? Other places, though, they got demolished during this boom and bust, this economic bubble. So what are the two red lines here? Well, the first red line is when my father decided to sell his inn, and so he had $1 million, and then he took out a loan for about $700,000. And he built a luxury home off in Telluride, Colorado. Big, massive luxury home. $1 million of his own money and $700,000 in loans. He would be able to sell it for $5 or $6 million easy. The second red line is when he finished building it and put it on the market. I won't go into detail, but this was an extremely painful experience. He lost everything in this. Now, he turned out all right, and he lived the life that he wanted to live, and he was fine. But he lost all his money. He lost all his money because he bet it on a housing market that was a bubble, okay? So that's the main thing we're going to discuss today is why that isn't going forward. What's an economic bubble? Let's play with these a little bit. Now, like I say, the reading goes into tulips and so on and so forth, and it's a fascinating story and has some cute little anecdotes. But why are we looking at something that happened in the 1600s when this stuff is happening in, the 2020s, right? So in a video that I posted, and I hope you watched it, but if you didn't, I'll give you a quick summary. I've lived through many bubbles, okay? The housing bubble, the .com bubble, and the comic book bubble. Back in the 1990s, there was a huge comic book bubble, and just the comic book prices comic books were big. And the late 1990s, the bubble burst and everybody lost their money, even Marvel. Marvel, the company now owned by Disney and MCU and all that, Marvel declared bankruptcy. They went out of business. It was so bad, okay? Well, let's talk about what the ingredients of an economic bubble are, and then we're going to see if we can identify any today, okay? And for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to use comic books as an example. I could do tulips, but the hell with it. I want to do comic books, right? And, check it out, right? I still have some cool comic books hanging up there. I still own all my comic books. So, okay, let's come back over here. We're going to do that one right there. Okay, so what makes a bubble? First of all, when something is kind of a status symbol, when you own it and then other people go, ooh, wow, and so on and so forth, right? So, for example, the comic books I have over here, just one of those is the first appearance of Spider-Man's black suit, which turned out to be Venom, right? So I've got that one. The other one that's hanging, yeah, that's the first appearance of Juggernaut from the X-Men. That's the brother of Xavier and you know, all that sort of stuff. I've got there's another comic right up here. You can't see it, but it's the first appearance of Vampirella. These are in the comic book world. These books are status symbols. If I can show them off and people go, oh, wow, that is way cool, then you've got yourself a status symbol. Next one is rarity. Okay, if something is rare, that can be a contributor to a bubble. Now, here's the case. Here's the thing about comic books. The old ones are really rare. They're super rare because they were printed on piece of crap paper with lousy ink, newspaper print, and they were meant to be read and discarded by 7-year-olds. So, yeah, these things were just torn up and, so on and so forth, super rare. Well, when the bubble came along, they were printed on really nice paper, and they printed way more issues, way more copies, way more titles than they needed. And they just created this artificial supply. All right. Next one, low supply, high demand. Now, once again, with the old classic comic books I've got there, we've got really, really, really low supply and really high demand. But when a bubble comes into play, things kind of reverse. There becomes, this artificially low supply. We'll come back to that, but with massive demand. Okay? Low buy-in, meaning you don't need to be a multi-millionaire to get in on this bubble. Okay? You can buy a decent little old comic book for $40 that's kind of a cool issue, right? Tulips and so forth. Bitcoin, and we'll talk more about Bitcoin here in a moment. You don't need to be rich to get in on the party, okay? Next thing, speculation. This one is key, okay? Speculation is when you purchase something with the intent of reselling it at a higher price, okay? That's all. You don't care about what you're buying. It doesn't matter to you. You never take it out of the package. Never take the toy out of the package. I have a ton of toys too, action figures, right? You have no intention of using the item for the intent that it was created. You are simply looking for what we call in economics the greater fool, the bigger idiot. The greater fool theory says if I can buy something and sell it at a higher price to somebody else, then that's the greater fool. And then that person buys it and sells it to somebody else at a higher price, and now they're no longer the greater fool, the other person is. The greatest fool is the one who gets left holding the darn thing when the bubble bursts, okay? So speculation, the only thing people are interested in is making money by selling at a higher price. Well, that's what comic book people were doing, myself included. When a new issue came out, like a new series or something happening in the issue, I would buy like 10 copies. I'd keep one for myself and the other 9 were to put my kids through college, right? So that is speculation. We're buying things up with the intent of reselling. Well, this leads to stockpiling. So remember, I said I would buy 10 issues of this number 1, right? Or this annual issue. Well, that means that I would put the other 9 in storage, and I have storage boxes for these things. Okay, so now look at what this does to the market. The market thinks there's high demand for comic books because people are buying millions of comic books. But the truth is, people are not buying those comic books with the intent of consuming. They're buying with the intent of selling later. So it looks like the market is hot when in fact people are taking what they're buying and putting it in storage. Well, what's the problem with that? We'll come back to futures. Because then eventually there's a rush to sell all this stuff. When we start to see prices drop, everyone's like, oh, I got to get out of the market while I still can. And so they take their thousands and thousands of comic books, and there's a million people doing this, and putting these thousands and thousands of comic books out on eBay and all that sort of stuff, flooding the market, okay? So now all of a sudden demand is really low. People don't want to buy these things, and supply is really high. People are trying to unload their stuff. And at a certain point, something that you paid $300 or $400 for is literally worthless. You cannot give it away. Okay, that's the effect of the stockpiling and the rush to sell. Now, I talk about futures here. Futures is when you just go ahead and buy before it's even published, right? You buy it before it's even out there. So it gives an artificial signal to the market that demand is high. And then finally, no regulation, right? Now, in the case of Bitcoin and so forth, here, let me pull this on over. Where's the one I have for this? Oh, dingy dingy darn it. Give me one moment, folks. Bitcoin value chart, and we'll go to max. Okay, so get out of the way, Lon. This fingerprint should look familiar to you. This is the Bitcoin boom and bust, okay? Now, I want to make something clear. This is not a slam against Bitcoin. This is not a slam against cryptocurrency. One day, crypto will find its home. Remember, I've talked about the tulip boom. Tulips are still awesome and still expensive. I talked about the .com boom. Last I checked, the internet is doing pretty well. We talked about the housing boom. Housing is still a thing people live in. And we talked about the comic book boom. Comic books are still awesome. So when something goes through a boom and bust, that doesn't mean the product or service is lousy. It simply means we got too excited about it too quickly and threw too much stupid money after it. And that's what has happened with crypto. It got too big too quick, and it was all speculation. Eventually, as I said, we'll find a home for crypto. We'll figure out how to use it. But right now, it's just a speculation item that has no value outside of finding the greater fool. That's it. Okay? So, with that, I want to open this up for a moment. Bubbles are forming all the time. All the time. And I would even guess that some of you have been caught in some small bubbles, okay? Now, I'm going to let you know, when you're in a bubble, it's hard to see that you're in a bubble. So we have to speculate here a little bit. But let's play with this for a moment. Where do you see bubbles forming today? And Jake, we're going to jump right in on that. So let's play with this and see where we see bubbles happening today. Okay, as usual, you guys have got some great ones here. So let's go ahead and start this up. And gosh, what are we going to do today? I think we'll do ourselves some sci-fi. Okay, so let's play this. So let's talk about the housing market. Now, one of the things, like I said, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see. And everybody has an opinion about whether or not you are or are not in a bubble. If you listen to that podcast about the railroad bubble that's in the module, it's fascinating to see these really, really, really smart people say, "Oh no, it's not a bubble," and others say, "Yes, it is. It was a bubble." So housing market is one of those that there's reasonable minds can disagree. On one hand, housing prices are way too high. Full stop. Full stop. They're way too high. Okay. Well, that says it's a bubble. Not necessarily. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying not necessarily. First of all, how is it different than the previous housing bubble? Well, in the previous housing bubble, it was really hip and cool to buy like 3 or 4 houses. Seriously. People were buying 3 or 4 houses because they were speculation and they were going to flip them or just sit on them until prices went up in 6 months and then resell them. This was a really, really common practice, okay? We're not seeing as much of that right now. Furthermore, there is a serious lack of supply of homes right now. So when there's a lack of supply and high demand, that doesn't necessarily mean bubble. On the other hand, to say yes to the bubble, you notice that the prices were just going up, 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 up. Well, when the Fed started to raise interest rates to deal with this inflation, housing prices leveled out, and in some cases, they came down a little bit. That suggests that they were artificially high because people could easily buy and sell them and start flipping them and so forth. So housing is definitely a suspect on the list. So then Maximus pulls up we also had from Jake, the car market during COVID. Yes, especially used cars. It was really fascinating. You guys remember this. Since new cars were not coming off of the assembly line because of COVID and the shutdown of production, that meant that you could actually get a lot of money for a used car. And so used car prices were getting up almost as high as a new car in a regular market. But then when the new cars started to come off the assembly line, now the used car prices started to come down. But case in point, I bought a new car toward the end of the pandemic. I bought a new car. There was no haggling to be done. It was like, this is the price. This is what you're going to pay. Because if you don't pay it, somebody else will. So, and I wanted the car. We've got housing and Tesla. Tesla's, gosh, I don't know where Tesla is going to go. That's an interesting one, Julie. Tesla, gosh, yeah, Tesla. On one hand, I think Tesla can really define the future. On the other hand, I think Tesla is a dumpster fire waiting to happen. I am of two minds on this one. Toilet paper during the pandemic? Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Kate, now, Maximus, you mentioned the price of specific trading cards, Magic the Gathering. That's right up there with the comic books. When I was going into the comic book stores, I was seeing Magic cards all over the place. So, yeah, $12,000 in the 90s. The Pokemon market you and Bridger bring up. Yes. Oh, gosh, I remember that. You guys need to look up Pogs. 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 If you were into Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or comic books during the 90s, you knew about Pogs. There was another bubble, right? Issue of no one selling their house because of interest. Okay, Maximus, you're really on to something here. So here's what's happening with housing in terms of not selling, right, Maximus? It's a great question. So, first of all, interest rates are so high, no one is selling because I'm going to use me as an example. This home right here, this home. I could get a lot of money for this home. I mean, a lot, not because it's an amazing and marvelous home, although I love it. It's because of the market. So let's say that I could sell it for $650,000, $700,000, which I can't even believe these words are coming out of my mouth. Okay. Well, then I'm walking away from a 1.5% interest rate, a 2.5% interest rate, and I would have to then buy another place that's probably going to cost the same, if not more, and I would have to pay an interest rate of 6.5%. Why would I do that? So many older homeowners, boomers and Gen X, are not selling. And so this is keeping the supply down. I came across a study just the other day that said, most homes that were in the second home and so forth were back in the 1980s were owned by people who were around 35 years old. Now it's around 55 years old. In other words, people like me are not selling. And just so you know, I've been in this home now for 23 years. I will be in it for another 23 years. So I am contributing to the low supply of homes out there because no one wants to sell. So yeah, point. Okay. That's bubbles. Please be on the lookout for them. You guys mentioned some. I'll tell you some others real quick. Shoes. All these Nike shoes that are bought and sold through online arbitrage and so forth. Shoes and sneakers, these are classic bubbles. Crypto and NFTs, up and down. NFTs went up and down almost instantaneously, like over the span of 6 months. This is not a slam against shoes. I like shoes. It's not a slam against crypto or NFT. These things have their place. We just don't know what they are. Beanie Babies. Oh my gosh, Beanie Babies. Yes, I remember that. By the way, so if you want to have some fun, Google couples dividing Beanie Babies in a divorce. And there's this famous picture of all this big pile of Beanie Babies in the middle of a courthouse before the judge, and the husband and wife are taking turns dividing out the Beanie Babies because, they're going to be worth money. They're useless now. There's a really good documentary about this as well. So, yeah, great input, guys. Yeah, they were all on the floor. You know the picture. It's hilarious and pathetic and sad at the same time. It's a shame. Okay. So the thing we're going to wrap up with now is talking about romance of a busy broker. Okay, now I'm going to let you know real quick. I am going to tell you over the next 3 minutes what this reading is all about. And then if you want to take off, you're fine. Because I am then going to follow up with some old man advice about how to avoid this. So I'll let you know when that moment comes. But let's start off by talking about this story. It's a short little story. It's cute. It's fine. Has a M. Night Shyamalan ending. So let me tell you the ending because it's the main thing. So there's this broker. He's a busy broker. I forget the names of all these characters. I should have looked before we started. Anyway, there's this broker, and he's really, really busy, and so on and so forth. And his partner comes in, and they're all busy away. And the partner says, "Hey, by the way, I have these interviews for a new well, it's secretary. What was it called in the story? Stenographer. I think it was stenographer, new secretary, right? Hey, I have these interviews for a new secretary lined up today, just so you know." And the broker's like, "Oh, what? Oh, okay, fine, whatever." And he gets to work. And now the existing secretary, she walks on in. And she's kind of smiling at the broker. "Why, good morning, sir. How are you this morning?" "Oh, I'm good. Thank you." And she goes and sits down. And he's working away, and he's like, "I actually really like her. She's a good secretary, good stenographer. I don't understand why we're interviewing." And so he's working away, and he really starts to kind of fixate on this. And he's like, "She's really good. Why are we? This is stupid." So he calls his partner back in and says, "Listen, cancel those interviews. We don't need a new stenographer. This gal, she's awesome. She's amazing. She's fantastic." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, yeah. What did I just say? Come on, chop, go cancel the interviews. Time is money. We need to go. So the partner's, "Okay, I'm going to go cancel them." And then the broker starts, thinking about it more and more. And he thinks, "I really like her. In fact, I really, really, really like her." He says, "I ought to ask her to marry me." So he goes on over to her and says, "Hey, listen, I know we haven't really had time to do a proper courtship or anything, but I mean, I'm just so busy. I've got a lot of things going on. Got meetings. Oh, hell, my phone is ringing. Listen, I'm just going to take a second. Will you marry me? I know this is kind of sudden and so forth, but I've got a meeting I need to run to. So if you could give me an answer, that'd be really awesome." And the gal kind of looks at him and starts to quiver a little bit, but then she kind of smiles and says, I was kind of afraid this was going to happen. Sweetie, you and I were married last night at the church on the corner." Now there's your M. Night Shyamalan ending and so forth. And it's like, oh, wow, he's so busy. He forgot he got married. And, and we're all willing to say that'll never happen. Folks, while this is an extreme because it's a story, this shit happens. Okay? You can get so caught up in work that you forget that you are a human being with human needs and relationships. I really need to ask you to trust me on this. I know what I'm talking about. I've come from the corporate sector. I've worked at all the tech companies, and they will chew you up and spit you out so fast and call themselves employers of choice in doing so. So what I'm going to do now, if you have everything you need for this week, you have everything you need for the module. We'll have a final review on Zoom next week. So if you want to drop off, feel free to drop off. What I am going to do, though, is I am going to explore 8 tools that the system uses to control you and get you to overwork. Okay? These are not weird-ass conspiracy theories. These are tools that the system uses to get you to think that you need to work harder than you are and to give your life to the company. Okay? So, a lot of these but we're going to review them. First of all, there's the profit motive. Remember, the profit motive says we are never content with our current state. And so we need to work harder. We need to work smarter. We need to be more productive. We need to get more skills. We need a better job. We need more to get what we want in this life. And employers know this. They know that they're going to keep you around because your stock options don't vest for another 6 months. They know they're going to keep you around because this year's bonus is going to be pretty good. These are retention tools that HR organizations use. There's many retention tools, okay, that they use to say, stick with us, work harder, work longer. They know that you want to get good reviews, especially when you start to move up in a company. Performance reviews really, really matter. And they know that you want the promotions, and the people who get the promotions are the people who show up before anyone else and leave after everyone else and put in the weekends and all that stuff. Companies know that the profit motive is working in their favor, and if they use it properly, they can get you to work your ass off because you want more. Okay, that's the first. Second one is the Protestant work ethic. We've talked about this one. The idea that being busy is perceived as virtuous. And yet being lazy or idle and so forth is considered slothful and sinful. Okay, so how often have you at work not had much to do, but you're trying to look busy? I mean, come on, right? There's nothing to do. I'm done with my job, but I've got to look busy. And so you make up crap, all right, to do. This is inefficient. It is ridiculous. It is wasteful. And yet we do it because this is what the system expects. Now, eventually, as you get older in your career, you will become really good at making up fake work. And the company will reward you for this, all right? Because we got to make up work. We got to look busy. Remember, you want to be the first one there and the last one to leave. And so we start scheduling meetings that mean nothing. We put together committees with subcommittees. We start these projects and then end of life these projects. We do all kinds of things to look busy. And we create what is called bureaucratic inertia, such that the bureaucracy, the organization, all it starts to do is justify its own existence through its work, not actually produce anything. But this is important because you never want to be perceived as idle, right? And it is another way that companies keep you in their grasp. Next one is we want to have it all. We're taught that we can have anything we want, be anything we want, and do anything we want, and that we can have it all. By the way, you ladies really, really bear the brunt of this. You're told that you can be an amazing mother, an amazing school volunteer, and an amazing community member, and an amazing employee, an amazing businesswoman, all of it, right? You can't. And guys, you can't be an amazing employee and run a business and be a father to your kids and yada, yada, yada. But we really, really feel like we should because we've been told our whole lives that you can have it all. And so we work and work and work. So I have a good friend who works in the tech sector. I've worked with him for years before I left and went to academia, but we still have connection. He works probably 60-hour weeks. and has just been called to be a bishop and has 7 kids and all this kind of stuff. He is not sleeping, but maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. I am not making this up. I am, in fact, very, very concerned for my friend. And I've told him this and so on and so forth. But you're supposed to be it all. You need to be an amazing father. You need to be an amazing mother. You need to be an amazing employee. You need to be an amazing, volunteer for the community. You need to be all of this. And furthermore, you got to pay for it. So companies keep you around by making sure they know that that they're the ones financing all this. Next one, FOMO. You guys get FOMO. This is nothing new. The whole fear of missing out. We're trained to look for and pursue every possible opportunity. The history of capitalism is replete with examples of people who missed out and lost big. So I've got to get in on online arbitrage. I have got to get in on crypto. Oh my gosh, I don't own any NFTs yet. I have got to get in on this, and this. Multi-level marketing and so on and so forth. Because we are afraid of missing out on an opportunity that later we look back on and go, oh my gosh. I mean, I remember when Bitcoins cost 0.00002 cents. And I'm like, I'm not getting into that. I could have retired a millionaire. You know what? You're going to do that your whole life. And FOMO is saying, well, instead of recognizing that there's going to be opportunities and you're going to miss them, you need to pursue each and every single one that you see out there. And so you're going to be working your ass off. Now, the same thing happens at work. When they say, hey, do you want to be on this project team? We'd like to put you on this project team. We'd like to give you this new responsibility. We're going to put senior in front of your title and give you this new work and so forth. And we'd like you to volunteer to do this, that, and the other. The company really pressures you to take on more and more responsibility because you're afraid of missing out on an opportunity. There might be a future promotion in this. There might be a raise in this. And so they dangle these carrots in front of you while loading you up with more and more work and telling you how lucky you are that you've got all this work. And if you just keep going, maybe you'll get this carrot. The FOMO is what, inspires us to take on more and more of this. Okay. Then we got the irony of wealth. Here's the thing. Wealth requires effort to sustain. It requires maintenance. It requires money. It enslaves us to stuff. Now, I know what I'm talking about, right? I've got this MG midget downstairs that I'm working on, right? My new YouTube channel rattling around the garage. I'm working on my MG midget. That thing costs money. Cars cost money to maintain. Yards and trees and lawns cost money. A house costs money to maintain. So check this out. Somebody who owns a home is considered well off. But if you own 2 homes, you're rich. Yes, but now you have double the expenses of maintaining the home. And trust me when I say, when it comes to time, effort, energy, and money, maintaining a home is expensive as all get out. So then you add more cars and you add a boat and you add all this other sort of stuff. And before you know it, you are working more and more hours, not to get what you don't have, but to sustain what you do have. So yeah, we become a slave to our stuff. All right. It's really hard to say no. This is part of FOMO, okay? When you get into a career, you really want to maintain your standing in the organization and your standing with the managers and the leaders and so forth. And frankly, there's real value to being the go-to person. I'm telling you, there's value to that. If your leadership and management perceive you as, yeah, you see, that person's a solution. All right. We have problems coming out of our wazoo, right? But so-and-so is a solution. So they turn to you. That makes you valuable. But then you are really pressured to never say no. Because when you say no, maybe you're missing out on an opportunity. Maybe you're slightly burning a bridge. Maybe you're disappointing somebody that you want to maintain a good relationship with. It's ongoing. I'm going to be substituting for a class tonight. Why am I substituting for a class? Do I need the money? No. Okay, then why am I doing it? Do I like teaching at night for a substitute? No. It's because my boss asked me to, and you know what? I don't want to burn that clout. I sort of need to make sure that I am in a position where I am perceived as a valuable contributor to the school. And so every once in a while, I need to say yes when I'm asked to do something I don't want to do. But sometimes we feel, that we are forced to say yes. It is incumbent upon us to say yes all the time because we're afraid to say no. Being busy as all get out and working 60, 70 hours a week is a great place to hide from your real problems. Okay. Now, I do not want to belittle any of our life experiences. Okay. We are all on our own life journeys, and you have experienced traumas in your own ways. I recognize that and I validate it. I am going to propose to you, however, that you ain't seen nothing yet when if you choose married, kids, careers, endeavors, projects, businesses, what have you, there is going to be incredible stress and anxiety in all of that. Now, okay, fine. So why would I work more? Check this out. At work, you know the system. You know how the organization works. You know your roles and responsibilities. You know the roles and responsibilities of everybody else. You know how you are expected to collaborate, and you know what success looks like because the expectations have been set clear. That's pretty good. At home, you ain't got nothing of that. There are no roles and responsibilities that people have or hold or recognize. You don't know what success looks like. You don't have the skills to do these things. I've been a parent now for 34 years and I'm still making this crap up. You don't really know. You're not validated for what you're doing. You're not recognized and rewarded for what you're doing. So the stress that you experience with domestic problems is on a whole new level than the stress you experience at work. And so work becomes a really tempting place to hide. Listen to the Supertramp song, Take the Long Way Home. Okay? Supertramp. If I haven't dated myself 18 times yet today, I've just done it. Okay. Here's the last one. This is how companies control us. We like it. We are masochists. Okay? As it says here, we brag about how busy we are, waving our self-perceived martyrdom syndrome for all to see and admire. We attach our sense of worth of self-worth to our title and salary. So I'll tell you something, folks. We're getting close to the end of the semester. And I am going to start hearing faculty say, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so behind on my grading. Oh my gosh. And I want to punch these people in the throat. Because, listen, when you say, I'm so busy, I'm so behind on my grading, what you are asking me to say is, oh, you're so important and busy and wow, yeah, I get it. What I'm really thinking is you have poor time management skills. Last I checked, I have 24 hours in a day. You have 24 hours in a day. I teach 7 classes. You teach 7 classes. If you're behind, it's because you don't know how to get your ducks in a row. Don't come to me and say how busy you are, expecting me to say, gokuro-sama desu. If you speak Japanese, it means, oh, hard worker. It's one of the highest compliments you can give somebody in Japanese. No. But we like feeling, oh, I'm so busy. I have so much going on. When people say, when I say, hey, how was your weekend? And they're like, oh, what weekend? It's going, you know what? Screw you. You had a weekend. What you chose to do with the weekend is up to you. But don't say to me, oh, what weekend? When I tell people that I read a book, what I often hear is, oh, I wish I had time to read a book. You do. You do have time to read a book. You just choose not to. And instead, you choose to say, oh, well, aren't you la-di-da that you have time to read a book? Me, on the other hand, I'm busy. I have responsibilities. No. But I'm telling you, the system uses that as a way to keep you busy, to keep you engaged, to keep you working your ass off so that you can wrap yourself in the warm blanket of, oh, I'm so busy and important. Okay? So you have time to do anything that you have time to do anything you choose to make time for. Absolutely correct, Faith. Absolutely correct. Yeah. It's amazing how I have so little time to do this, but I have all the time in the world to surf social media and watch YouTube. So that was my old man rant. Okay. But please kind of embrace some of it, because you're about to go into the workforce here in the next few years, and you're going to want to work hard to establish a name for yourself, to establish a career, to gain respect and influence in the organization, and you should do all these. But make sure that you're aware of when things are going too far and how they are using what tools to, bring you into this dark side, and recognize when you need to kind of step back and say, you know what? I'm going to set some rules and some barriers, saying, okay, this time I do this stuff, other times I don't, stuff like that. I have rules, I follow them, and it's been a lifesaver for me. Okay, guys, you did it. Send me an email. Let me know you were here. Of course, I see Faith and Jackson and Maximus and Bridger and Brandley and Julie. So, gosh, that's probably the majority of you right there. But do me a favor and send me an email. Let me know that you're here just so I can remember, but I probably will. And thank you so much for sticking with me through this live stream course. I understand it's not like other live stream courses over Zoom and so forth, and it has its pros and cons, but I really appreciate you joining me in this grand experiment. Brandley, I really, really appreciate it. I really do. Every semester is different. We should always be trying to improve and push ourselves and develop new skills. So every single semester, I get a new batch of guinea pigs, and you guys have been marvelous guinea pigs. But I'm a guinea pig too. So thank you. We're all set. Cole, great to see you. Fantastic. Send me that email, and I will see you in Zoom next week, and we'll wrap things up. I will, of course, stick around a little bit longer if you have any questions or if you want to meet up over Zoom or anything like that. Otherwise, have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's see, where's my button? There's my button. We'll see ya.
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.